Gotta be a better way. Absolutely. I'm in that camp 100%, and I hate the saying of it's always been done this way or this is the way it's been done. And you're like, well, you can always improve it. You can always change it, try out something else to save time and solve the problem a different way. Because I live to solve problems and just come up with ideas and then build things and just see if it works. That's my bread and butter.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of The Pursuit of Purpose. My name is Chris Kiefer, and I am here with Ben Dlugiewicz from YouCanBookMe. And Ben, first of all, thank you so much for carving out some time to do this. I'm super excited. So thank you for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. Thanks for having me. Excited to dig into a bunch of cool stuff.
And I came across you. I don't know if you remember this, but the first time that I chatted with you was when I was at a previous employer of mine. And we used YouCanBookMe, and I was having this issue, and I was like, "Gosh, I know, like I'm a fairly tech savvy person, and I had gotten like the stock responses back. I was like, can I just talk to somebody and show them what's going on?" And so we went on this Zoom call because you were like, "Yeah, sure, let's chat." And then we talked for like a half hour about all these features, and you're like, "Oh, tell me what else would be helpful," or whatever. So, anyways, that's how it got started. But then I've been connected with you on LinkedIn and saw that you are talking a lot about AI and how you're trying to bring AI solutions into YouCanBookMe. So before we get into that, because that's what I want to talk about is just automation and technology and AI and all that stuff, I'm curious if you could give me like a 60-second bio of Ben, but then also in your own more, creative or articulate words, tell everybody what YouCanBookMe is and who it makes sense for.
Yeah, absolutely. So a bit of background about me. I've been involved with tech ever since I've been young, helping my dad run his computer repair business, building computers when I was like, been running the gamut of big companies, small companies, telecommunication giants, and now working with YouCanBookMe, which is an online scheduling platform. So we help any size business get meetings with anybody that they need to meet with across the world, across the street, however they need it to work. Very flexible platform that can handle a wide variety of use cases, anything from renting paddle boards to scheduling sales demos for large teams. So I help now with getting folks up and running, getting them onboarded, basically looking at their use case in their workflow, see if it'll be a good fit, most importantly. So we like to pull in like automations as we can because our whole platform is designed to save you time. And one thing that I coined myself as is I'm quote unquote lazy, but I'm just efficient and I find automations to save time, right? So that's what I help a lot of people do every month at YouCanBookMe.
I just saw somewhere, I can't remember who posted this, that you actually want to have lazy people on your team. Not like super lazy, but you want to make sure that you have people that are lazy enough to be like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, there's got to be a better way.
Gotta be a better way. Absolutely. I'm in that camp 100%, and I hate the saying of it's always been done this way or this is the way it's been done. And you're like, well, you can always improve it. You can always change it, try out something else to save time and solve the problem a different way. Because I live to solve problems and just come up with ideas and then build things and just see if it works. That's my bread and butter.
That's awesome. So I'd be curious for like the first thing to talk about. You, I don't even know, 2 months ago, set out to try and solve support tickets using AI. Curious if there's anything of interest there that you want to talk about, or just we can go down a tech rabbit hole of whatever else is on your mind.
Totally. So with the buzz at the end of last year with everybody getting on ChatGPT and kind of testing it out and that coming into the forefront, a lot of conversations started happening. A lot of companies started springing up new solutions, all kind of dealing with AI. So we as a company decided not to turn our backs on it, but actually embrace it and figure out how essentially we can do more with less, right? Like that's the whole purpose of exploring AI is to do things at scale a lot faster than we could before. So at the time I was helping out the support team. So I'm looking at ways to bring in AI to help our customers, like the case you were talking about earlier, where you're just like, I don't know what to do, right? So figure out a way that we could use our own interactions with customers as the large language model. The kind of backbone of any AI system is just a wealth of information of questions and answers, right? Of saying, I had this question, here's the proposed response. So figuring out a way to tie into, 170,000 requests we've had over the years and extrapolate and pull out a model, so then an AI system can do it a lot faster, 24/7, without needing a human to be involved. So that was my initial concept of going through there. And I found a few tools that were promising, there were still a little early days, and a lot of these tools maybe don't have like the proper security protocols or measurements. So you got to kind of take the good with the bad when you're trying new technology, that maybe they don't have things all fleshed out. So you have to navigate that with each individual company. But the programs that I saw, they kind of would get us close, but they haven't really been able to get that full journey for that customer that we're looking for, of like the chat interface. Hey, I'm struggling with X, Y, and Z. Here are some options. And then when it has to go over to a human being, hey, here's the recommended response. So there are a couple of tools we're still exploring on that. They're quite expensive because each request to the API costs money. So there's that we have to navigate. But the tool that we're checking out most recently called Ultimate.ai, and that will allow us to do all of that at scale and supposedly get about 60 to 70% of our customer service handled automatically through the AI system.
And so the idea, just to put this into my own words, would be you have a system that when someone clicks, I need help on YouCanBookMe, they submit a request, and initially there's just the AI that's trying its best to, based on what they're asking, is going to say, hey, here's an answer. Is this helpful? Did this work? And they're like, yes, it did. Great. We solved it. Or it kicks it to a person, and then the person would even be given a recommended response to say, hey, let's just save you time on writing it out. You could use this. This is a great starting place, and they can modify if necessary. But again, we're just saving keystrokes, things like that. Is that the idea?
Yeah, you're exactly right on. And then also kind of built onto that is support in over 100 languages, because we have an international customer base. So if they're chatting to us in Spanish or Portuguese, French, German, then the system automatically translates it. Where we have to be, it's kind of a slippery slope, because once the ticket comes into us, then, we'll be able to translate it with our system, but we have to let them know that, hey, this is going to be computer generated. So, some translations may not be 100% accurate, but.
And right now, how are you handling multi-language support tickets without AI?
So right now it's Google Translate, and it's very time consuming, right? And it's having to pause, shift gears, do the translation. So our plan is to roll out a new help desk that will have the translations inline built in, and then bolt on that AI component for the front end service side of it. So and we're hopefully going to be moving forward that quite soon to at least get some things tested out and see how that goes. Because we're a very small company, so we need to be able to, focus our manual inputs and our, manual work on stuff that's really going to push the business forward. Obviously, customer support and customer success is important, but there's a lot we can do with technology to get us to where, we're only focusing on like 20% of those really tough cases.
So the I've come across, I feel like you've probably experienced this as well when it comes to AI, just a number of times where you hear something that's like, ooh, that sounds super cool. You get in, you try it out, and it's like I would say 90% awesome. It's like so cool that it could do this much. And then there's that last 10% that's like, I don't know if it's the human element or that human touch that just makes it like perfect. And it just I've had more tools than not that are like really cool concepts that are just struggling with that last little bit. Is this something that, or I guess maybe what you're saying is that this is the tool that acknowledges it's struggling with that last 10%, and you're figuring out how to like augment it with a human seamless handoff. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think you want to set the expectation to the customer that this is kind of a program that they're interacting with, right? But that also comes with some negative connotation from like the IVRs like that people are on the phone with. It's like, I just want to talk to somebody. Just give me a human being, for Christ's sake. So you have to kind of understand that maybe people might be frustrated. So it's about putting the guardrails on your system that's customer facing to where there always is an eject lever, right? That they can always get a hold of somebody somehow, right? There's a way for them to do that. And then the other kind of thing with those models is a lot of the AI will infer or make things up just because it doesn't want to fail at the task, right? So it's like, how do you do X, Y, Z? So if you don't have a language model that is structured, it'll go out and try to piece stuff in. So there's also that component too, because you don't want it to give misinformation, and you always want to have an off ramp so then somebody can get a hold of a human if they needed to. So I think what our plan is to get a large swath of our easy to answer questions just ironed out. Because even if we could take 30% of those tier 1 support, I mean, that already has a huge impact.
Totally. Yeah, and that's the other thing is that I feel that I'm going to call them the haters or the doubters of AI, like to throw these edge cases in to like blow up the whole thing. It's like, yeah, that's fine. Like, okay, we'll have a customer still, like an agent, answer that question. But like you said, can we eliminate 10%, 20%, 30, whatever it is of the question that like 60% of our customers ask us blank. And they ask us the same time. We've told them it's in the onboarding, it's in the videos, it's in like a help section. But just like when they ask that, present it to them in a nice, on a silver platter and make that a seamless experience. It's like you just saved, especially as you scale, even if it's only 20%, like is that one agent's time that you would have needed to handle whatever it is, you know what I mean? So
right.
I like that approach of we're not trying to solve everything, but we think that we can give much faster support and a better experience by having it intelligently decide to solve these ones, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the thing with AI too, especially in the support capacity, is it's easy to jump to, oh, we can just fire everyone and have a machine do it. But I think, as you mentioned, there still is that magic element that a human can be involved in to really personalize it and make it appropriate outside of what a computer program could do. Because yeah, you could have all these inputs coming in of the LTV or how long a customer's been with you, the past issues, all of that stuff. But a human can actually tie that into nuanced, reaction of saying, here's some empathy, here's some compassion, until it gets to, the point where technology is a bit more advanced. Because right now, there's still just that weird kind of computer programming element. And I think we still need the human involved for the most part.
Yeah. I'm curious what just like you've done a lot of research, you've looked at a lot of different things. What are you most excited about? Or maybe you could take this in any number of directions, but things that you've seen that you're just like, wow, like I've never even considered that this could be like AI could be brought into this and it's doing amazing things there, or things that you've just like heard rumors about, or just like dreaming like it would be cool if someone came up with a solution for blank.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the interesting thing with AI and the stuff I'm reading about, like quantum computing, and even though quantum computing is still kind of more just in the laboratory, but the AI component coupled with the ability to run so many kind of analysis in parallel to a level that just makes my mind kind of melt, the amount of computing power and intelligence that you could have, to where all of these inputs could be coming in, say in like the medical field. You could have all of this data anonymized coming into a system, and then me as the patient can plug in my my location, all these variables to then determine health outcomes, right? Like that is the future of where all of this is going. And I think too, just the way that this technology is kind of built is it's, able to do a lot of the heavy lifting for us. So I think what I'm most excited to see is kind of a new renaissance where now folks won't have to do the mundane stuff that they were working on. So that will free up their time to explore other things and volunteer and kind of just live a full life, whether it's not just all work, 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 because there's systems and processes in place that are helping do a majority of that. So I think that's going to be an interesting thing to just open up people's mind and capacity for other thoughts, right? And other things.
Do you think I've gone back and forth and read different books on like AI replacing job, like, you know, how many jobs is it going to replace and what are people going to do? What would you say, like, where do you see, and again, maybe like, you know, 100 years from now or whatever, at some point in the future, yes, technically anything a human can do, a computer could do. But, you know, how soon or far away that is, that's an interesting question. But say in the next 10 years, like you're saying, could you expand on how do you see, like, it's not, I guess my assumption, and maybe this is just because like you and I are people that are engaging with this and we're finding ways to implement it. So yes, a lot of like lower level jobs, or at least lower level tasks that are parts of jobs, will get eliminated. But to me, like, it doesn't mean that we're not doing anything.
Yeah, right. And I think in that, like, specific industries to be disrupted, or anything that involves like a human summary of something. So if you think of like law clerks and things like that, you could have a system now read through all of these abstracts, read through all of these case files way faster than a human could, to then output your contract based off of that precedent or any kind of structure around that. I think that is a big spot that's going to be disrupted with this new technology. But as we said earlier, there's always, I mean, in my mind, there's always going to be a need for some human involvement, whether that's maintaining the system, right? So being more of like the operator to maintain the system, or to intervene when things aren't exactly right. Because I think we're still waiting on that promise of all of these robot butlers in our house to do all of these cooking and cleaning like we saw in the Jetsons when we were younger. And I think we're still probably a decade to 2 decades away from that being the norm, right? So humans are still going to need to be doing a lot of the work before we get to that promised easy street with our feet up. But like you said, what then do you do, right? It's not like you're not doing anything. Then I think it's more of, you know, doing the networking, building relationships, building community, all of that stuff that, you know, always is the nice to have for a business, because you're stuck connecting all these systems and building all these processes and being involved in the day to day. But if you could leverage automation to handle a lot of that, leverage AI and technology to handle a lot of that, then that frees you up to kind of work on the business, not in the business, right? So like working on networking, working on content, working on all the cool stuff that you'd always want to get to, but you can't because you're stuck in the weeds handling all of the admin stuff.
So how is it, like, are you the primary person at YouCanBookMe that is like investigating this stuff? Or do you have like a process or like an approach of how you guys are investigating, considering, exploring, testing, whatever it is?
Yeah, so what we did is we ran through and got a laundry list of all of these new kind of AI tools out there, or just existing tools that had AI capacity. So the team just went through and analyzed them, reviewed them all, made some short list, had conversations, meetings, even some test and trial accounts to try stuff out. So that was been our approach of just the exploration of what is possible, what is out there, and then you kind of couple that with your requirements on what we're looking to do, and at the same token, like where it could scale into, because that's the most important piece. Like you were saying, that a lot of these tools can handle this one thing, but a different tool can handle 2 or 3 of things that you might need in the future. So it's always something to consider there. So that's just been our process of getting a list, exploring these tools, digging in, asking questions, going on demos, and just talking with folks in the industry, just to see what's been working, what's been successful, where can this go. And then internally, we've been looking at just different options of rolling out AI into our actual platform, to where it could be a situation where you come in and you give a few prompts, and then your building page is already, or your booking page is already built for you. because the AI knows exactly how to set it up to modify features, modify settings, then it's kind of already done. So I think it's a two-pronged approach with this technology of helping our customers solve their problems, but then also making it easier to use our platform.
So the another thing that I don't have a ton of expertise on, but you mentioned the security risks or things that you have, like trying to make sure that you have one that is secure. What type of things are you paying attention to, or like features with AI tools are important to make sure that, like, obviously like medical, there's like HIPAA laws, but when you're talking about like just general software and whatnot, is it more of like intellectual property that your concern is getting out, or like identifying information of customers, or what? What's the
Yeah. And I think the biggest one is just that the PII, that personal identifiable information, that if anything is leaving your system, going into this third party that then is taking it through an AI kind of algorithm or API, that's 3 steps removed from your kind of holding of that customer's information. And a lot of people that can manipulate it or just scrape it in any way. And the thing that we're most anxious on is anytime that you're allowing an AI system access to your customer data, you then don't have control over what's happening with it, right? Because then now their language model could potentially be storing this information, using it to, answer other questions, whatever, right? It could be whatever, because once it gets in there, then you can never really pull it back. So I think the big thing to watch out for is just to understand the scopes of what these companies are doing, what information they have access to, what internal tools they might be integrating with, how that information is going back and forth, and ultimately like what their data privacy policy is, if they have one in place. A lot of these companies, they may not because they're fresh, but just knowing how the data is leaving your system, what happens once it's in their system, and if there's any way to anonymize it, so then there's no identifiable information.
Interesting. So what else? What else are you pondering, thinking about when it comes to AI, or if you want to jump into automation or APIs or whatever other topics? What else is on your mind these days?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's just trying to expose more people to just the world of automation. Because, as at YouCanBookMe, we're a scheduling automation platform, and our biggest competitor is email of people saying, oh, what time works for you? What time works for you? And it's back and forth. So just letting people know that there are options out there, that anything that you're doing repetitively can be built with a simple automation using a tool like Zapier or Make.com or any of these platforms to basically help you build things so then you don't have to be involved. And just starting simple of somebody, sending you an email, then having a draft. Maybe that's not super simple. I guess that's a bit more complex, but you can start with something simple to say, hey, when this thing happens, do this other thing, right? So when I get a Slack message that has this certain text, then do something else. So it's hard to kind of prescribe it because it can be different for everybody, but I just want everyone to, explore automation in a way that can save them time. And it's not as scary as you think, especially, again, with a tool like Zapier, with no code, low code kind of user interface, you can build automation to do practically everything. So anything that you're spending multiple hours a week doing, obviously, creative thinking is separate, where you can't really automate that just yet. But anything that's admin work within your business of saying, oh, I have to move this thing from this spot over to this spot to get reviewed by this other person, all of those things you're manually involved in, you could build a layer of automation to just save you a bunch of time. And I don't know, it's just, I want more people to be as excited about it as I am, because it can help you do a lot of cool stuff.
That's I didn't realize, or obviously I guess I don't know still 100% what you're doing at YouCanBookMe, but I am a huge advocate of Zapier, Make. There's another tool I've seen called Ply. Have you looked at Ply.io at all? Anyways, their Ply in particular, I guess this is my 30-second explanation of it, but it's like, think like Zapier or Make, but in context of whatever it is that you're looking at. So they call it contextual automations. So it'd be like if you're looking at a YouTube video, you could have like a little extension on Chrome that like you push a button and then you could have information from the web page that you're on. That's a standard like process that you're doing, like be feeding into an automation that runs. Or like Gmail's another great one. Like you can have it extract data from the email that is currently in front of you, and you can have a form pop up with a couple questions, or like you're saying, have it generate a response, things like that. But yeah, I think that that's what I'm doing for painting companies in particular, is like trying to use tools like YouCanBookMe or Zapier, Make, and tying all of the softwares together. Because I'd be curious what your thoughts are on this. Obviously, I would say maybe this isn't obvious. You can tell me if you agree or disagree with this. But anytime I'm working with a company, my thought is, what's the fewest number of softwares that we can use for your business to achieve the end result that you're after? And but oftentimes, like I hesitate, or I'm very against a single software that theoretically does it all, because I just feel like you take something quote unquote as simple as scheduling an appointment, and someone comes and they're like, oh yeah, my CRM has a scheduling tool, so I don't need YouCanBookMe, and it's like, well, there's so much wrapped up in scheduling that a company has been created and spent years with a team of however many people solving just scheduling and thinking of all this nuance and like just everything that is there. And I feel like the same thing goes for estimating a painting project, or just like a CRM system versus an accounting system, or whatever it is, project management. Like they're all these very niche things, and one software is theoretically nicer because there's less disparate data. But anytime I've seen the one software that does it all, you're giving up so much user interface and ease of use or functionality because you're trying to get like the one thing, and it's not good.
Yeah, I'm right there with you with these monolithic platforms, and I think Salesforce kind of started that out, and then HubSpot got into it, and it's like, oh, we can do that, bolt it on, acquire a company, bring it in, and it's almost like they can do those things okay, but like you're saying, when you need additional functionality out of it and you're squeezing it till it can't do anymore, then that's where you have to get these other tools. And I love your approach of the fewest is better. I think it's Occam's razor, right? The simplest solution is the right one, always. Like if you can do it with 3 softwares, then you don't need to buy 5. And I think that's one recommendation I give to anybody looking to explore like automation, is to build it in your mind and your workflow first before you start going onto the computer to start tying things together, because you can get things bloated and out of control, and then it just gets off the rails really quickly. So focus on that customer journey, what you need your customer to do, and then you can figure out the components and the pieces of software that you need, and then you can build the automation to kind of stitch them all together. But yeah, there's a reason why all of these companies are spinning up that just focus on one core piece, because then they can master it and get it right.
Yeah. Tell me more about that, mapping it out before jumping in.
Yeah, I think that's an often overlooked with anything technology-wise, that you just want to start going into the tool and building, whether that's a new software tool you're exploring or a new process you're building into an existing tool. And what I always try to do is take a step back and just wireframe it out, the journeys of all the stakeholders, all the people involved, on what they need to do, how they need to do it. And then you have a structure and kind of a loose roadmap on how you need to build it. Because as you go into different tools, there's many different ways to get from A to B. But if you don't know where you're going to go, then you'll wind up building something that is nowhere near where it could have been if you just had that proper planning ahead of time. So again, just looking at the workflow on what your users or stakeholders are going to be doing with this automation, how it's going to work, that also can roll into documentation. So then you have it, right? This is how this works. So I think that's also another overlooked thing, especially in a larger group or a larger company with people changing jobs all the time. You can build out a bunch of automation. Then once that guy leaves or that lady leaves, then nobody knows how it works, right? And then you're like, oh, burn it all down. We got to start over again because we didn't have the documentation, which, could have been coupled with that early planning.
Yeah, I just think that's fantastic to hear you say that, because when I work with a client, first thing that we do is what I call the data blueprint. It's just like, all right, everyone, like exactly like what you said. My analogy is, let's say like it is ludicrous to think that you would ever build a house without a blueprint, right? You'd have everything, you're like putting drywall in and you're like, wait, there's no plumbing. Like, why is there no plumbing over here? And it's like, so your option at that point is literally to like rip the house down or undo all the work you just did. But the analogy, I expanded that even further with like, the bigger problem is when people don't plan and then they start tacking on automations. And then it's like you actually are having people live in the house before it's done. And then you realize that the plumbing's not in there. And now you have people that are using your house and the only option is to tear it down and start over. And now what do you do? Because you have a business dependent on half thought out processes. And that's just, it gets really, you're in a worse off place than not having automations because you didn't plan.
Exactly. And when that happens and you're kind of building these half-baked option or solutions, then the customer impact could be dire, where they're getting random emails spitting out that make no sense. It's not fully tested, it's not fully thought out. And when you tweak something on part A, part C is busted and you have no idea because it's not drawn out, it's not mapped out.
Yep. I love that. Yeah. What else? No code. Any like you mentioning some software tools, automation stuff. Has YouCanBookMe, or have you helped with actually implementing automations from an operational standpoint outside of what YouCanBookMe does, like for customers, but just like in-house?
Yeah, I mean, I've helped out and built some internal automations to help our customer success team get people spun up on the platform a lot faster, just to kind of do it programmatically at scale with the our API, which that came from a need because we were going to manually be like building out these assets for these larger customers coming in, and I did it with like 10 of them, and I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. So then I built a little automation system to where it's like an input, and then based off that input, then the assets and accounts and everything gets created and connected. So we built different tools like that, and then it's a matter of looking at like I said, like the API or how applications communicate across the web, of how different tools can kind of interact together to where you can get some data from our scheduling system over into our CRM, just to keep track of who's scheduling for what and all of that good stuff there. So, I mean, I've built, so many little internal tools to help the team, whether it's like a pricing calculator or like the automation workflow, anything I can do to try to break things, but while making them better.
Yes. I love that. I was going to say that the one thing that I noticed early on about YouCanBookMe that it's honestly why I would say it's my favorite scheduling tool, is because, and I'm curious how, if you've had any involvement in this, the balance of like native functionality or native integrations with like open-ended integrations that are more like webhook. Like webhook is a feature, like specifically, I'll give a really concrete example. YouCanBookMe has a Zapier integration, which is what I started using initially. But then what I realized was, for a company that has, let's say, 16 estimators or whatever, or like the employees that are using these tools, If I come up with an idea to improve an automation, I now have to take this one tweak and do it 16 times. And so what I started doing was using the webhook functionality, which YouCanBookMe has. And so we just send a webhook to Zapier, but now all 16 YouCanBookMe calendars are funneling to one. And then I just have, the personal identifying like calendar information inside the payload of that particular app, But that's another thing where it's like some businesses, I don't know if it was created for that purpose or if you guys thought about these different instances, but it's like the number of companies that are like, oh yeah, we already have a Zapier integration, so that should solve your problem. And that's the end of it. But you guys also have like, you want reminders and you have all these predefined triggers inside of the app of like, we can send an email for you natively and you can book me, or we can send a text for you natively, or you know what? Here's a webhook, do whatever the hell you want and have it be just like send whatever data you want to wherever you want and have fun.
That's it. That's the big differentiator with our platform is it's really wide open in that regard to where you can customize practically everything. And one of my favorite features is that webhook because it allows you to easily push booking data around anywhere that you want on the web. Unfortunately, a lot of proprietary systems aren't super welcoming to incoming webhooks. So you need like an interstitial program like a Zapier or something homegrown to where you can process that incoming data and then do whatever. But yeah, we allow you to send that booking information at all of those different intervals to any place that you want, and it's encrypted in transit, and it's all secure, and you can add like security headers as well into all of that to make it above board. But that just is one differentiator to open-ended play really with anything on the web.
I'm curious, was that like, to what extent was that like, I don't know how long you've been at YouCanBookMe, but I assume that had to have been like an intentional strategic thing, or was it kind of like organically? Because I would say I've talked to some businesses, and these are like, I would say people that are new in the software space. They're very protective of like, oh, we don't want to integrate with that scheduling tool because we want to have our own scheduling tool in-house, or we don't want to allow people to send data everywhere else because we want people to use our software. But I feel like it's the exact opposite, that the more your software talks to other softwares, the more like valuable you become because it just opens up possibilities. But I think that's a more recent understanding, I guess. And it seems like you guys have been doing this for a lot longer. And I'm curious if that was intentional or if it just kind of was like, people would ask and we do stuff. And then all of a sudden we look back and we're like, oh, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think it definitely was intentional because so I've been with the company for about 5 years, and we've been in business as a company since about 2010. So we were like one of the first scheduling automation platforms. But even from the beginning, we tried to approach it from kind of like not an open source, but as open source as we could get, to where we initially, and we still have this functionality called the CalDev integration, which is basically if any calendaring system uses that same kind of technology and framework, you could integrate with it, right? Obviously, our support for that is limited because you have proprietary servers and things we don't have access to. So that, coupled with this kind of webhooks concept, really just open it up for you to build things as you need to. Like, it's all customized to from the booking page on the settings that you're adjusting and manipulating to what happens afterward. We want to give you as many options as possible. And we're, exploring additional integrations that we could incorporate, redoing our Zapier integration to make it a lot more robust and adding more actions and things like that. So not just the trigger side of stuff. But really it's just about opening it up, because I think you nailed it right on the head of like, especially from a SaaS space, subscription service, the more ingrained in your workflow my tool becomes, the harder it is for you to leave, or it's more of a consideration, right? Rather than it just being like a commodity. Oh, this system's getting me bookings, and you could shut it down, turn it off, or whatever. But if our bookings are then triggering multiple automations within your organization to help them do things at scale, you're going to have to think a little bit harder on, should we leave this company or not, right? So like that's the big thing that we're after, is just making our product as sticky as possible while just cementing and providing continuous value.
Absolutely. I was going to say, I wasn't planning on going here, but I think this could be interesting. If I could be bold enough on this podcast that you so generously came to say, hey, this would be a very logical, in my opinion, feature or functionality to have. I was going to ask you, what actions do you have, or what plans do you have for actions in Zapier, such as updating a booking, like through Zapier, so like I can trigger an action or an automation based on a YouCanBookMe scheduling. But if I then have something else happen over here and I want to go back and cancel a booking through automation or update a field that was improperly edited or whatever, I can do that. The specific thing that I would say above all would be huge, and I'm going to share my screen for this because this will be, just like you're saying, mapping stuff and then like making a... So for those of you listening, you can go to Spotify or YouTube to see what I'm showing Ben right now. But so this is like a process flow of what I take people through with into painting businesses. And so this one right here, this is a series of automations that happen in YouCanBookMe. So it started if I zoom out, there's a whole bunch of stuff here. The red is automated, the blue are employee actions, and the pink is a customer action, right? So specifically in here, I have this employee action that is required of a booking, and then a whole bunch of stuff happens. I'm not going to go through what it is, but the point is that we make deals in HubSpot and create stuff. There's quotes, templates that are created, company cam projects, the Google Calendar event. What I would love to be able to do is I just created 1, 2, 3... let's call it 4 or 5 things potentially that all originated from YouCanBookMe, and they all have reference IDs inside their given application. So like there's a quote ID in Paint Scout, there's a project ID in Company Cam, and that's unique to that project, right? If I could then at the end of this have one extra step that's just called, let's say we put this here and it's called, write back IDs to YouCanBookMe. Right? And then I go update the original booking inside of YouCanBookMe to say, here is the ID for, what blank, here's the ID for blank, here's the ID for blank, so that later when the booking gets canceled in YouCanBookMe or whatever action is taken, maybe there's an update or it's rescheduled, how do I go back and with certainty and 100% accuracy go to all these same events that objects that I just created, search for them with that ID and make the appropriate adjustment. Does that make sense? So it's like just the feedback loop of I just triggered YouCanBookMe to do all this stuff, which is great. But the hiccup that we've had, which is we have some working, like some tentative things that are like Band-Aids. But when someone edits or reschedules a booking, going back with 100% accuracy to know that we're moving the date of the estimate in the Paint Scout quote to the right date, we don't know what quote needs to be updated, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is that, you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there is a way where you'd be able to patch or update that booking, right? Modify that booking and adjust like hidden form fields to bring that data back into the booking kind of element. The thing with that automation though is that we don't yet have a way to like query a booking like list to say, hey, I'm looking for search the bookings and find the bookings for Joe at company.com or something like that, and then give me that booking. So as long as you had that booking ID or kind of like this new flow that we're working on is modeling it off of this concept of intents, where you have a booking intent that you want to book on this page with this team member for this duration. Here are the answers to your questions in this little package that then becomes a booking essentially. So if you had either of those options to retrieve the booking by the booking ID or the intent, you could run a patch to update additional form fields.
Just through like the open API?
Yeah, just through our API, exactly. The tricky thing with the form fields, though, is that whatever you're passing in is going to overwrite what was already there. So you'll have to do a get to get all your form fields, then append what you need to add, push it all together.
Got it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, so you're saying that if I updated one field only and I didn't tell it to update the 15 other fields, it would be blanks for all those 15 others?
Exactly. Yeah.
Got
yeah.
it. Interesting.
Right.
Okay.
But
yeah,
at the same token, one avenue we could explore is kind of like some booking metadata or some other way to attach additional information to the booking without modifying the answers or the form or anything like that. That could be something we could explore.
Yeah. And it's just this is one thing that it's super niche, and I understand that. I don't know. I doubt that there's a lot of people in this space, but I've just realized that we have a few throughout, like all the automations I'll do for a painting company. There's a couple core softwares or let's call them just triggers that are often triggered by a software, and it's those core softwares that I'm realizing the value of having the ability to create custom fields within those apps. So like HubSpot, for example, I can create custom fields for whatever I want. Yes, I can create custom or hidden fields and YouCanBookMe, so that checks that box. But the part that's missing is how can I just easily say, here's 4 pieces of data, push it back to where, like what was just, because it's all in the same flow in Zapier, for example. We just need to go back and update all the stuff that was already there. So, but that's interesting. So it's helpful.
Yeah, so yeah, if you do have that within one Zap, then it's just a matter of tying directly into our API with your key, grabbing the contents, so doing a get for that booking, and then you can patch or update for the rest of the form fields and everything.
Yeah, that's awesome. Sweet. Well, let's move to our final questions here because we're coming up on time. What I always ask everybody, what 3 book recommendations do you have?
Yeah, that's a great question. I just got done reading the SaaS Playbook by Rob Walling. He started Drip and runs MicroConf and Tiny Seed. So he's been in SaaS for the last 20 years, and it's just an amazing book of anybody in the space, so in this subscription model kind of digital space, that's looking for a lot of lessons in 200 pages. It was very, very, very well done and right on the money. Apart from that, another book that I always come back to is Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And that's all about kind of manifesting the life that you want and kind of pushing your life further and achieving greatness in the pursuit of purpose, if you will. So that's another good book. And then also coupled with that is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, which is about just being present and being surrendering into the now and into the present time.
Love that. And last question, what is your favorite movie?
Jeez, this is so difficult to answer because you're like, I got to go off the beaten path here. I think one of my most recent favorite movies is Ex Machina. It's a movie about a billionaire tech guy who's working on kind of artificial intelligence humanoid robots, and it was really well done. So that's kind of an obscure one, but I'm a huge cinephile. I watch movies all the time. Me and my brother just wrote, or we're in the process of writing a movie at the moment.
Oh, really?
Sci-fi thriller thing. Yeah.
That's awesome. I feel like I started, I'm looking at Ex Machina. I don't know if I've ever seen that one.
Yeah.
You'll probably like this because of being a tech data guy. I always ask people for movie recommendations. And a friend of mine back in college, we came up on IMDb just a rating benchmark. So if it's below a 7.3, I'm not going to watch it unless the person wants to use their mulligan. So everybody in the world gets a mulligan, and they can say, I know it's a sub 7.3 movie, Chris, but knowing you, trust me, you should watch this. And everyone's like, I don't know if that'll work. But I'm telling you, like Ex Machina is a 7.7. It's a fantastic movie. I'm adding it to my watch list. People are always hesitant, or some people are hesitant. on like how could that be accurate. And the challenge is try to find a movie that you genuinely like that's under 7.3. And it's like there occasionally I'll find someone that it's like a 6.9 or 7 or whatever. But if it's a good movie, it's going to for me, what that does is it frees me up to say, I've got an hour and a half of my life and I'm going to sit down to watch this. And I don't want to say, well, that was a waste. So the 7.3 is like, with 98% certainty, I know that I'm going to enjoy what I'm sitting down to watch, you know?
Yeah.
The only thing it doesn't work on is comedy.
Benchmark.
Comedy doesn't work. Comedy is just like, you think it's hilarious, I think it's offensive. And, you know, so I'm going to rate it a 0, you know, so.
Exactly. And that's the one thing I never understood with Netflix of how they haven't figured out a social component to share videos and movies recommendations.
Yeah, well, I feel
so
like
silly.
with Netflix, I don't know what the strategy is because a lot of movies on Netflix don't have good scores. You know, like if you look them up, and they're just trying to say like, hey, watch this one, watch this one, watch this one. And I feel like if they allowed ratings or they pulled in IMDb ratings, like so many of their shows wouldn't get watched just because they have bad scores.
That's true. Yeah.
It would be nice. Anyways, Ben, this was super fun. Thank you for coming on to chat and indulge in technology. But yeah, this is awesome. I love what you guys are doing at YouCanBookMe, and I'm excited we got to connect.
Yeah, Chris, thanks so much. Any chance I can geek out on tech with people, I'm all here for it. So thanks so much for the time.
Thank you for your attention and listening to this episode of The Pursuit of Purpose. Your feedback and comments mean the world to me. If you liked what you heard, please take a second, leave me a 5-star review on iTunes. If you've got suggestions for future episodes or just want to say hi, shoot me an email at chris@chriskiefer.com. Don't forget, I make it a point to include all the links to the books, movies, and resources mentioned on this episode in the show notes. You can see those directly below in the description or on my website, chriskiefer.com. Thanks so much, guys.